you need to pay attention to this. The president-elect, Joe Biden, and his transition team are putting forward a plan that should raise the hair on the back of your neck, if nothing else. They want to do a gun tax. Essentially, what they're doing is they want to tax your possession of certain guns, which is arguably constitutional. You have the right to keep and bear arms, but there's also a taxation right in the Constitution. And, for example, people treat healthcare as a right, although it's not in the Constitution, or abortion as a right, but you can still restrict, regulate, and tax. The taxing power and the private property possession powers, you have a right to private property under the Constitution, but the government has a right to tax that property to generate income for the government. They can do this. It is arguably constitutional, although maybe some of the President Trump's picks will stop it. But let me explain to you what the Democrats want to do. They want to enact a tax revenue measure that is actually a gun control measure. The reason they want to do it as a tax measure is because even if they can't get rid of the filibuster, as long as they can take the Senate with the 2 Georgia races, they can enact a gun tax. I've read the proposal, and I want to read for you the proposal from Joe Biden's tax plan. He would force semi-automatic rifle owners to either participate in a gun buyback program or register the firearms under the National Firearms Act, which would require a $200 tax. It would extend to AR-15s and other rifles. Those who do not comply would face up to 10 years in federal prison and a potential $10,000 fine. Why? For failure to pay your taxes. Now, let me read this for you because it gets a little more interesting. As detailed on the website, Biden would institute a program to buy back weapons of war currently on our streets. That's the language he uses in his campaign. This will give individuals who now possess assault weapons or high-capacity magazines 2 options: sell them or register them. In order to register a firearm, or, by the way, a magazine, you'll have to send in a 13-page application form and a $200 tax, along with your fingerprints and a photo of yourself. Now, here's the funny part. According to the Biden plan, it's not just guns that will have to be registered and taxed. It is high-capacity magazines. Now, what is a high-capacity magazine? Anything that holds more than 10 rounds. So your standard magazine for, like, I got a Daniel Defense AR, it holds 25 rounds, and it came with the gun. It was the standard issue magazine. I would have to pay $200 for that magazine. I've got 2 of them, so I would have to pay $400. And I have a rifle, so I would have to pay $600 total annually. It's not a one-off tax. It is essentially a property tax. There is taxing power in the Constitution. The taxing power and the constitutional amendments are read in concert with each other, not to one override the other unless explicitly so. Therefore, the taxing power and the right to keep and bear arms are arguably constitutionally collaborative, which means they would work together, which means you could keep and bear arms, but you're also going to be taxed. Here's a problem. If the Republicans lose the Senate because Loeffler and Perdue lose, it doesn't matter whether the Democrats get rid of the filibuster or not. They would do this as part of a larger reconciliation package. Now, what is reconciliation? Reconciliation is a budgetary maneuver in the Senate to get around the filibuster. You can one time per year pass a budgetary issue that benefits the national debt or doesn't impact the national debt over a 10-year period, and you can pass it without a filibuster. This is how the Republicans were able to pass the president's tax reform package, because they made some cuts, but then also they sunsetted some of the tax cuts over time so that it did not impact the 10-year window on reconciliation. So they were able to get it passed. The Democrats couldn't filibuster it. This is what Biden wants to do with the gun tax, put it into a larger tax plan. They're also considering a carbon tax that they would put into this to fight global warming. Essentially, they're putting in a bunch of taxes to curb your behavior calling it a fiscal revenue driver so that they can bypass reconciliation with it. So you could get a carbon tax under the Green New Deal plan. You could get this gun tax. That's an annual tax. You could also get the income tax increase for people who make $400,000 a year or more, which Biden has promised to do. You could get it all in one plan that can sail through the House of Representatives on a vote of just the Democrats, and then sail through the Senate on just the vote of Democrats without dealing with the filibuster because it's reconciliation, and it becomes law. Biden would sign it. This is another reason why, if you live in Georgia, you need to engage in this Senate runoff.